Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest way in which news about the Conservatives has brought my palm into close contact with my face, as I discovered that they are pursuing a so-called 80-20 strategy. So what is this 80-20 strategy? Why is it a terrible idea? And why is Sunak doing it anyway? So the 80-20 strategy, it's a way of focusing election resources onto important seats by targeting your 80 most marginal seats that you hold and chasing after 20 marginal seats that other parties hold in the hope of nicking one or two. Now, in a tight election, absolutely makes sense to focus your efforts on defending your most vulnerable seats to try and retain as many of them as possible, and then trying to take a few which are vulnerable for your opponents. Only there's a small flaw with the plan. The marginal seats, which would be in this list, are no longer marginal. In fact, we have seats at the moment sat on a 15,000 majority that are not actually marginal anymore. You've got to be on about 20,000 majorities roughly before you can even think of fighting for your seat. That's the state the Conservatives are in. The actual marginals based on the 2019 results completely gone. And the idea that the Conservatives can afford to chase after seats which they couldn't even win in 2019 seems ridiculous. There are a couple of seats in Scotland which the SNP rolled over last time, that the Tories could conceivably win in the following election. It's come because it wasn't only the Conservatives who punched above their weight in the last general election, but the SNP did as well. Both are going to experience a reduction in overall vote share, according to the polls. But even these seats, which are, possible for the Conservatives to target, would require the Conservatives to lose less support than the SNP in those constituencies. And there are not 20 seats where this could possibly be the case. According to reports, this 80-20 strategy was drawn up in early 2022. At the time, Labour were just moving into a position where the polls were giving them a majority, but it wasn't a large majority, it wasn't a comfortable majority. At the time, election strategy for the Tories would have been very different. The game was on. A good election campaign could have seen Labour beaten down into minority government territory, not be able to get a lot done. The Conservatives could then build up and hope to win the following election. And really, this is the time the Conservatives should have held the election. I think even their own strategists knew that waiting was just going to make things worse, although they probably couldn't have predicted how much worse. But the point is that 2 years ago, some of those marginals were still winnable. If the Tories talked about retaining some red wall seats at the time, absolutely that was possible. We didn't really expect until recently that Labour would win back every single one of those red wall seats, because some of those red wall seats, really, the demographic changes over time have turned them Conservative anyway. But it appears that Sunak is still pursuing this same strategy from two leaders and 2 years ago. So why? Well, the easy answer is because he's an idiot, sure, but there will be strategists working on the campaign who are not. Sunak is apparently telling his MPs that he has internal polling data which indicates that there are still red wall seats which are winnable for the Tories. Needless to say, I have not seen this polling. It's not been published. But it occurs to me that this has less to do with electoral strategy and more to do with political strategy. Of course, the two things should probably be the same in election year, but not for the Conservatives right now. I think that by pursuing this strategy, Sunak is saying that he's not giving up on any seats which his party currently holds. I said recently, the last thing Sunak wants is for a load of Tory MPs who want to fight for their seat. They're not stepping down. They want to still be MPs, thinking that Sunak is certain to cost them, but maybe a change of leader could revive their fortunes. Because that is a recipe for confidence letters going in, with the local elections being the next and possibly final trigger for this to happen. So I think it's a strategy of telling his MPs, look, never mind what the public polls are saying, right? They're all woke. They've been wrong before. Our polling is more detailed and it shows that with the right resources, you can win your seat. And you know what? I'm going to give you those resources. Sunak just needs his MPs to think they have a chance with him, that he has their back. Indeed, the assistant editor of Conservative Home has argued it's probably easier for Sunak to chuck a few resources at hopeless seats than it is to prepare his party for the shock of defeat. Except it's worse than that, isn't it? We're not just talking about a defeat. I mean, a defeat is like, okay, we're going to be in opposition for a bit. We'll give Labour a hard time, and then, you know, we'll come back after one term in opposition. That's not what we're talking about, is it? We're talking about a real possibility that the Conservative Party may not even lead the official opposition. I mean, it's likely they will, but it is by no means certain. It is there for the taking. They can be beaten down into third or even fourth place with enough tactical voting. You know, there's a ridiculous amount of copium flying around the Conservative Party right now. They think falling interest rates will help them. No, because those going on to the new fixed rates, even if the interest rates have come down, it'll still be way higher than it was when they originally fixed those rates. So their repayments are still going to be way higher than they were. They think that falling inflation will help them. No, because they are the worst for claiming falling inflation means falling prices. But the prices are still going up because, of course, they are. Which makes the public think that any good news about inflation is a con, because they go, well, the prices are still going up. And if they now think that their marginals from a few years ago are still marginals, or that even that some of them are, they are in for a rude awakening. I'd be genuinely interested to know what Conservative MPs really believe is going to happen at the election. Like, why would they think that record arrivals of small boats won't mean even more votes being lost to Reform UK? Why do they think that the cost of living crisis biting again in autumn, as it always does in autumn, will make their undecided voters more likely to turn out for them? Do they think Sunak is sitting on a brilliant election campaign? Do they think he's got lots of goods on, oh, never mind the Angela Rayner House thing. Oh, we've got loads of dirt on the Labour front bench. And, you know, we've got this campaign full of the dirtiest tricks known to man, and we're just waiting for the starting pistol, and the poll ratings will skyrocket again. And do they really believe the polls will swing in their favour enough to help? Because as I showed in a video yesterday, if you look at all of the elections since 1979, which is for which we have polling data, the best swing any incumbent government ever saw during the election campaign was 9 points towards them. But in reality, because there was a bit of a weakness with that polling, it's 8 points in the following election. And that 8 point swing towards them occurred in 1997. The Tories still had some advantages. You know, they were very far behind in the polls, but they were leading on the economy. You know, the public regarded the Conservatives still as the best party to manage the economy. And an 8 point swing towards them was all they got, and they still got hammered. This time, the Tories are not leading on any important policy area or any other metric making up voting behaviour, like, you know, the head-to-head with the leaders. Labour are leading a clean sweep for the first time ever in polling history, and it's a fairly stable clean sweep. And it's not like the Conservatives are even behaving like their forebears from 1997. You know, it's not, they're not even focused on the election. They're tearing themselves apart. I see there's a new scheme to deselect a load of moderate Conservative MPs. The Tories are spending more time fighting each other than any of the other parties. And the party which is taking the most support of all, Reform UK, the Tories aren't attacking them at all. In fact, they're praising them. So maybe this 80-20 strategy isn't as mad as it seems. If Sunak is of the view that his MPs are determined to punch themselves in the face, does it really matter that he wastes some money on unwinnable seats just for the sake of reducing the chances of open revolt against him? But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for the further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.